We've come a long way since 2012 when my next guest was drafted 9th overall to Carolina, 5-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, one of the best to ever do it, and Panthers radio analyst as well. Luke Kuechly, can you imagine, back in 2012, you weren't thinking about holograms. How we've come a long way.
It's come a long way. I was sitting in my parents' basement in Cincinnati, Ohio, watching the draft, sitting on an old leather green couch that we still have, and now they're doing holograms of Caleb Williams doing interview questions. So it's come a long way since 2012.
They get Rome at 9. Caleb, DJ, old friend of yours. What do you think? What do you make of the start of the Caleb Williams era in Chicago?
Well, they've surrounded him with great people. You see this video. Look how excited he is. And I think if you're Caleb Williams, you go in this situation, you're like, I've got Keenan Allen, I've got DJ Moore, I've got Cole Kmet, I've got 2 big tackles. Went and get DeAndre Swift. And then you go in the draft night, you get picked 1 overall, and you're just pumped to be living out your dream. You're the number 1 pick. You get to hear your name called. And then a couple picks later, you get another really good receiver that you never thought was going to be there in Rome Odunze, the guy from Washington. I think he's got to be absolutely thrilled when they trot out for that first game of the season. He's not going to know who to throw the ball to. All those guys are going to be wide open. I can't imagine how you game plan for, all right, we got to guard DJ, now Keenan Allen, now we've got Rome Odunze. And it's like, all right, well, Cole Kmet's going to be wide open in the middle of the field. It's a great situation for Caleb Williams, and I don't think he could be any more excited than he is.
Do you believe, I asked Calvin Johnson, Hall of Famer, do you believe, obviously played in the same division? And he sort of said no. And I said, even if they get Marvin Harrison also. And he was like, I got to see it first. Yeah,
K cut out for just a second there. You cut out just for a second there. Can you repeat that question?
Do you believe in the Bears?
Yo, do I believe in it? I mean, like you said, you got to see it to believe it. But when you look at how they built it specifically on the offensive side of the ball, they've got those 2 big tackles that are going to protect Caleb Williams, and they've done everything they can the last couple of years to put themselves in position to just slide a quarterback in there. You look at some of these situations, you look at Drake May in New England, he's got a little bit more of an uphill battle than Caleb does. And if you're Caleb, you walk in and everything is preset, ready to go for you. They've done everything the last couple of years that said, hey, Caleb, we're going to draft you. We're going to forecast out and say, hey, we're going to surround you with guys from inside, from Cole Kmet, the tight end, outside, to now we're going to give you a good running back. We're going to build 2 guys on either side of the line of scrimmage for you with both those tackles. And then we're going to slide you right in. So, yeah, we got to see it for a little bit. But Ryan Poles has done a fantastic job over there of putting the pieces together, saying, Caleb, all you got to do is come in and be yourself. We don't need you to be Peyton Manning year 10, lead the team down the field, score 1 million points. It's like, hey, we've got great playmakers, make good decisions, be smart with the football, and get it to your guys and slowly grow along with them.
Let's move to the Atlanta of all of this, because I can't believe I'm 20 minutes in and we haven't talked about this. You played in the NFC South for years, 8 of them. Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to 4 years, $180 million, and then they grabbed Penix 8th overall. Make it make sense.
I think everybody's trying to figure out that question tonight or last night and obviously this morning. And when you think about it, it's like, all right, when you draft a rookie quarterback, you've gotten, 4 years until you got to go pay him a second contract. So you got these guys 4 years cheap. Now you've got all this money to spend to surround them with really good players. But now kind of you look at Atlanta, they've drafted the young quarterback, not paying him a ton, but now they've paid Kirk Cousins all that money. So it's an interesting dynamic there in that sense of, hey, the idea of drafting a rookie quarterback in the first round is you got him for 5 years under contract at a relatively low number, and then you can build. So then them drafting Penix there is interesting to me, because if you say, hey, we're going to bring Kirk Cousins in, we're going to try to score a bunch of points. We've got 2 first-round picks at tackle. We've got a guard we just paid a lot of money to. We've got a tight end. We got Bijan Robinson last year, Drake London. Boom, what if we slide another wide receiver in there to cause problems with Rome Odunze? And that's what I thought they were going to do. And then they called Penix's name out. I know Schefter came on and was super excited about, hey, I think Atlanta's going to take a quarterback. They go on and take the quarterback. I think it surprised everybody. And then obviously what's going on in Kirk Cousins' head is very similar to what happened with Aaron Rodgers a couple years ago with Jordan Love. The thing that everybody talked about was Green Bay has never drafted a skill player in the first round for Aaron Rodgers, really in his whole time, and that was a great opportunity for them to do it. And they end up drafting Jordan Love. So I'm trying to figure out why they're doing it. He's an older player. He's had some injury history. And then the idea of, hey, draft a rookie quarterback, have him cheat, build around him, spend money. They're not really able to do that. So I'm sure there's a reason these guys spent all offseason doing this. He probably largely knew that Penix was going to be there that early in the draft. So that's what those guys get paid to do, but I'm still trying to rationalize it in my head.
Well, Raheem Morris said it was like he tried this like Packers spin on it, right? It's like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, but I don't see it at all. I'm all for putting young quarterbacks where they can sit and develop. I love that, but this isn't that situation to me.
It's interesting because they're paying Kirk a lot of money on a long-term deal. When you look at drafting a quarterback and letting him sit behind a veteran for a year and kind of seeing what you have from the veteran on a short-term deal, seeing what you have from a rookie quarterback, it looks very similar to what Minnesota did with JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold. Obviously, Sam was in Carolina for a little bit of time. And that's kind of when you look at, hey, bring a veteran guy in, try to see what the veteran can do, bring in the young guy, see how he works, let him develop a little bit. That's kind of how I see that dynamic working. But in Atlanta, it's just I don't see it right now. I don't understand it in my mind. But if you're on the Falcons front office, you've got a lot of confidence in what you did because you spent a lot of time doing it. So we'll let that play out and see what happens.
I mean, to punt on a player at 8 that could help elevate this roster right now, you don't pay that kind of money that you're talking about unless you're going all in the
What
NFC.
doesn't,
It's sort of
yeah,
and Kirk is like surprised by the pick. He was called
yeah.
only when the Falcons were on the clock. What do you make of that? That's a guy that was drafted in your class back in 2012.
Well, I think, he's like, all right, was it pick 8? Is that where it was? Is that what it was? I think it was pick 8. Anyway, so Kirk's probably like, hey, I'm tired. I'm old. I have kids. I'm going to sit up and I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch what we do at number 8. He's probably excited. They get, Tennessee draft C or JC Latham, the tackle at 7. He's like, boom, I got a receiver staring at me in the face. I would love to go get that guy. And then he gets a phone call, probably excited, thinking, hey, Kirk, we're going to draft this stud out of Washington. And then instead they say, instead of drafting the receiver out of Washington, we're going to draft the quarterback out of Washington. So I think he's probably trying to rationalize it all too. But I love Kirk. Like you said, I trained with him for the combine. We got drafted together. We've played against each other. So he'll handle it well. I'm sure he's a little bit bummed that they didn't go get another dude for him to sling the ball to.
Atlanta should have given him a heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. That's just manners. Okay. Now late in the first round, Kuechly, break it down to me. We see the Chiefs trade up to the 28th pick with the Bills. They're like arch nemesis. KC takes wide receiver, the speedster, Xavier Worthy, fastest player alive. So from the Bills standpoint, let's start there. Are you okay with them making a trade with the biggest competition in the AFC? And why did they do it?
I think if you're the Bills, when you trade in the draft and when you're in the draft in general, you worry about your team and what's the best for your team. You don't worry about what another team's going to do, who they're going to draft, why they're going to draft them, what happens if they draft them, then we got to play against them. I think if you're Brandon Beane and you're Sean McDermott, you know who's on the draft board, you know who's capable of being drafted. And if you're okay with that and you trade back, you got to live with what happens. So I think Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are waking up this morning and they're saying, hey, we're okay, we're good. Maybe we didn't like what was there in the draft. And then the unique thing about being at pick number 33 is you get to sit all day and figure out what you want to do with it. Do we want to trade it? Do we want to trade back? Do we want to sit? Do we want to trade it for a player? And then if you're Brandon Beane, you also say, hey, we're picking up draft picks. So now instead of having one draft pick in the second round, now they have 2. They've got a couple more late in the draft. They're going to be able to stock players. I mean, they've moved on from a lot of guys on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Diggs was a big one this offseason. So they'll be able to figure it out. I don't think that they worry about who other people are going to draft, because if you do that, then you're going to be upset regardless of what happens. Like, man, we got to play against this guy with great speed. He's with Marquise Brown. There's going to be a ton of vertical threats on the field, but I'm confident in those guys. I've spent a lot of time around them. That they know what they're doing when they're trading back, and obviously they know who they're trading with.
I just can't believe you're saying this. I really can't believe just because you're saying, and Kuechly, you were with Brandon Beane, you were with Sean McDermott in Carolina. You know these guys. I imagine, as a lot of the internet does, that they wake up this morning still with recurring nightmares of Patrick Mahomes from back in 2017 when the Bills traded with the Chiefs. And isn't this a bit of a unique, did we not learn a lesson from that? Like, isn't this a bit of a unique situation that's the team that has kept you away from the Super Bowl year in, year out?
It's a challenging thing for them. I'm sure they had to grit their teeth a little bit and say, are we really going to trade with Kansas City? And then when that game comes around, there's going to be a huge storyline of how does Xavier Worthy play against the Buffalo Bills? If he is a non-factor, the Bills look like superheroes. If Xavier Worthy goes out and runs a couple deep balls, catches a couple touchdowns from the Chiefs, there's your storyline too. So that's what I think makes the draft so exciting is there's storylines that get created for the season back in April before anything even happened. So I'm sure there's Bills fans that are hoping they make a great pick in the draft tonight. If they make a great pick in the draft tonight with that pick they traded to the Chiefs, I think everybody would be all right.
How do you see the Chiefs using Xavier Worthy? Is it, like the low hanging fruit is like Tyreek Hill 2.0? Is there more to him? How would you use him? Is that what it's going to look like? I know it's kind of early to talk about.
Well, you got to imagine they're going to try to utilize that speed on deep balls, big overs, some zoom sweeps. I think the biggest winner this offseason with the Chiefs is Travis Kelce. You bring in Marquise Brown, vertical speed down the field, Xavier Worthy, vertical speed down the field. So now there's going to be all these layers within the defense and space for Travis Kelce just run around even more than he's been able to and just catch these balls so uncontested because these guys are running Mach 5 down the field on overs and crossers, and Travis Kelce can just run underneath and catch the ball. So you better believe that Andy Reid's got something creative up his sleeve now that he's got these two speedy vertical guys that can just fly down the field.
I know. I'm like, why are we even having the season? Like it's done. But there's a lot of optimism with all the picks, especially after the first round. Quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3 last night. JJ McCarthy's still on the board when the Giants are on the clock at 6. Kuechly, they don't do that. They say we want Malik Neighbors instead. Did they make a mistake by passing on McCarthy and Penix?
You know what? That's one of those situations where I think we just gotta wait and see. But I think you can never go wrong with drafting a guy that is going to be an instant impact player. And I think you look at these guys from LSU the last couple of years that have been drafted, the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons. They're going to elevate everybody around him. And this guy he's got size, he's got speed, he's explosive. He led the NCAA last year in receiving yards. I don't think you can go wrong with drafting a really good, solid player that you believe in. And I think over the last couple of years, the quarterbacks drafted in the first round, you're kind of guessing a little bit. And I think if they felt a little bit more secure in drafting a receiver right there and giving Daniel Jones or Drew Lock or whoever ends up being that quarterback, a guy that they can say, hey, on third down against man coverage, this guy can get open. In zone coverage, he's got enough ability and understanding of the game to sit down. He can make big catches. He can get down the field. He can track the ball in the air. They haven't really had that in New York the past couple of years. And I think it's hurt these quarterbacks. They haven't been able to develop because at some point in the game, you need a guy that can just get open. I just need you to get open. It's going to be man coverage. It's going to be 2-man. You have to win, and we're relying on you to win. And now they got a guy that they believe they can do that.
They haven't had a dominant wide receiver, like a wide receiver one since Odell, I think.
Since Odell, right? Another LSU guy.
Yeah. And speaking of LSU, like Neighbors is getting the comparisons to also Jamar Chase LSU with that speed, with everything. So he'll be a big addition. I would hope that, I mean, you're like Daniel Jones or Drew. I would hope that they're adding a quarterback tonight. But we'll see. Maybe they will roll into the season with those guys. I want to talk to you about defense because, man, what is it like for you? Like this can't be fun. There were no off-ball linebackers taken last night. What gives?
I
What
don't know.
gives?
I think so many guys on the offensive side of the ball. This was the first 15 picks, 6 quarterbacks, a bunch of receivers, some offensive tackles. The off the ball backers, I just think the value isn't what it used to be. I think you look at defense, you think first, we're going to think about guys that can affect the passer. So the edge guys obviously go, corners go high. But then there's two of them. Obviously, we talked about Peyton Wilson, but the guy that I like a lot is Edgerrin Cooper, the kid from A&M. I think he's big, he's athletic, he's long, and there's some good teams in the first part of the second round and through the second round that if I'm one of those guys that I really want to play in. And I think you look at the Buffalo system. Obviously, Buffalo's at 33. I can't imagine them doing that at 33, but they've got a late pick in the second round. I love that system. They've got some big guys up front that make life easy. So does one of those guys fall there? The other group that I saw was Washington. Dan Quinn's defense. You watch them in, I watched them in Seattle when I was playing, in Dallas last year, and then now in Washington. And the one good thing about that is obviously that system is great, right? But the one thing that if a linebacker goes into that system, they've got a guy named Bobby Wagner. Everybody knows Bobby. He's been around. He's an all-pro. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's made plays, production, whatever you need, he's done it. So a guy can slide in there. One, you got a great system. You've got two monsters in front of you. Deron Payne is a monster in Washington. Jonathan Allen's also there. And then they get to go learn from Bobby Wagner. Bobby's a great player. He's a stud. He's a great dude that'll teach. He came in, he had KJ Wright, taught him a lot. Bobby's a great teacher, but I think the best situation is Houston. You look at Houston, D'Amico Ryans played linebacker. That defense is really good. You've got a young pass rusher in Will Anderson. I mean, I would want to go play in that system just because it's fun to watch. And I don't know, I like 4 down. I like a little bit of 5 down. I like that zone. I like being able to run around and have big guys in front of you. So if I'm one of those 2 linebackers, those are the 3 teams that you're looking at. They're like, if I hear my name called by them, I'm excited.
We're going to take a TV break here. I mean, careful. Nick Caserio will be calling you to go play in that Houston
Right.
defense